Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Mind's Eye, and thank you all for tuning in. So, tonight I've picked out 10 of my favorite springtime albums, and these are albums that I always get a craving for in the springtime. Most of these albums I first heard or bought in the spring of whatever year I got them from, and to this day, I still relate these to spring. I always kind of get a craving for these albums come springtime. So I picked out 10 for my collection and one per artist, just so I could kind of keep this narrowed down to 10. But kicking things off, right at the top of my pile here, I've got Under the Blade by Twisted Sister. I got this album in 2004. I had just discovered Twisted Sister. I really kind of fell in love with the group. I really dug We're Not Gonna Take It when I saw it on VH1. My mom got me Stay Hungry. Loved the album. And then in early April, I got this album and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll together. And I could have also gone with Love Is for Suckers because I got that album for my birthday, which is in late April that same year. But I decided to go with Under the Blade for this video. And especially my favorite Twisted Sister song, which is on here, Bad Boys of Rock and Roll. Pretty much always been my favorite Twisted Sister track since I first heard it. But this album has just always felt like a nice, warm spring day. Songs like Shoot 'Em Down, Under the Blade, Tear It Loose. Always get a craving to pop this one in this time of year. Twisted Sisters, Under the Blade. Next up, I have the Stone Temple Pilots self-titled album from 2010. This album was released in the springtime. I believe, I'm almost positive it was in April sometime. Could have been late March, could have been early May, but I'm almost positive that it was in April in 2010. And I picked this album up. It was the first STP album that I ever bought. And I was starting to get into STP for about a year at this point. I just hadn't picked up any of their albums. So I bought this one when it came out. And this album just reminds me of that time. I mean, albums in music can certainly just become like soundtracks to your life. I mean, whenever you get big into an album, that album a lot of times can always take you back to that point in time. And this is one of those albums for me. May not be my favorite STP album, but tracks like Take a Load Off, Huckleberry Crumble, Cinnamon, Maver, and of course my favorite track on the album, which is First Kiss on Mars, which absolutely just feels like a spring, like semi-chilly spring night. This time of year, it's actually today's April 9th, the day I'm recording this. I'm not sure when I'm going to post it, but this time of year, spring night just like this, I always get a craving for that track. Every time that I hear it, takes me right back to a night like that. It takes me right back to 2010 too. It's just amazing how much of a time capsule that song is. But Stone Temple Pilots self-titled album from 2010 is another one of my springtime albums. Next up, staying in the same year of 2010, except this album wasn't actually released that year. I just happened to buy it in 2010, and that is Blender by Collective Soul. So I was really getting into Collective Soul in early 2010, and I picked up a couple of their albums up to this point. But I remember getting off work one day at like 9 or 10 in the morning, and I went to the music store and bought this album because I was taking a trip with my wife and a friend of mine to a town called Jim Thorpe, which is a couple hours away from here. And we were going to meet up with my buddy's then girlfriend and just kind of hang out for the day. So I bought this album for the trip, and it was a beautiful day, beautiful spring day. It wasn't too warm, it was almost kind of like that perfect springtime weather. And when we get there, we wound up finding up above town, there's like a lake that I don't remember what it's the name of the park or whatever it's called or what the name of the lake is, but I think there's like a little beach at one spot, and then on another end there's like a woods and little walking paths, and then on kind of another end you could rent like kayaks and stuff. And I always really enjoyed every time I go up there. I love going to the lake. It's like the part of the trip I most look forward to, and that's what really sticks with me with this album right here. Every time I listen to this album, that's what I picture, just kind of being by the lakeside, beautiful spring day. It's one of my favorite Collective Soul albums as well. So this is another one of my favorite springtime albums right here, Blender by Collective Soul. Next up, we have an album that I got for my 12th birthday. And speaking of a time capsule, this one takes me right back to my 12th birthday. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. Getting off school and getting this album right here, going outside, weather was beautiful. playing with my, I used to have a badminton racket, and I would, since I'm an only child, I would like, I didn't really have anyone to play with whenever my dad was working on his truck. So I would just like bat the thing up and try to keep it up in the air for as many times as I possibly could. And I just remember doing that, jamming to this album right here, Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic. And every time I hear this, I just kind of think of that. I always crave this album around my birthday. And this album takes me right back to that point in time. It just feels like I'm 12 years old again whenever I hear this one. Great Aerosmith album right here, Toys in the Attic. Maybe I should have put these in some sort of chronological order or something. Fast forward to my 13th birthday, and I got this one right here, Van Halen's Diver Down. So in 2003, I was really becoming obsessed with Van Halen. After I got Fair Warning, it was, I mean, that was it at that point. Loved the first album that I heard, which was VH1. Loved 5150 to a lesser extent, but you know, still I really liked it. Loved Fair Warning. When I got Fair Warning, that was it. I was hooked forever. Next album I got for my 13th birthday was Diver Down. And I just remember coming home from school on Friday, and my mom ordered this one for me off the internet, and it was there waiting for me when I got home. And I played this thing all night Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Took it with me to school on Monday, took it with to school on Tuesday, probably the rest of the week. But I just remember I did not get sick of this album, and I still really don't. I love this album. And back then, when I was 13, you didn't have all the social media whatnot on the internet. The internet was far more than it is today. It seemed like it, at least. But I didn't know that this was not the most popular of Van Halen albums. I got into it. I dug it. I loved all the original tracks on here. I just thought were fantastic, and some of Van Halen's best. Where Have All the Good Times Gone, still to this day, my favorite cover track from the band. But just like Toys in the Attic, this one takes me back to being 13 years old. I just remember that weekend, the weekend of my birthday back then. Absolutely enjoyed every second of soaking this album in. Still love this one today. Diver Down, another one that I always crave this time of year. So going a couple years earlier, Ace Frehley's solo album. So I had been into Kiss for a little bit, and I got this one in springtime of 2002. Probably, I guess it would have been around the same time that I got Toys in the Attic. But this one wasn't for my birthday. This was some other time during the spring. And I got this one, and to this day, still, I think this one, I always kind of crave this one this time of year. And the one I think that really does it for me, especially, is Fractured Mirror. Fractured Mirror just sounds like a nice, beautiful spring day. Rip It Out, I kind of really feel springtime on as well, but I think Fractured Mirror is the one that drives it home for me on this one right here. So Ace Frehley's solo album is another one I always crave during the springtime. All right, moving forward, this one I got closer to the age of 16. I was either 15, almost 16, or I just turned 16 whenever I got this one. Foo Fighters, There's Nothing Left to Lose. I'd been getting into the Foo Fighters, and I picked this one up. I was over town. My mom had a job back then, and she worked just kind of sporadic hours throughout the week. And I rode over with her, and she only worked a couple hours on whatever day. It probably must have been a weekend, because I think school was still in session. Well, it was if it was springtime. But I came over with her because she was only working for like 2 hours maybe, so I just decided to walk around town. I had some money on me, so I went to the CD store and I bought this one, and really loved it. So I just always equate this to walking around town on a nice, gorgeous spring day. First time I listened to this album, I kind of thought all the songs just about sounded the same, except for Stacked Actors and maybe Learn to Fly. But as I really began to differentiating the tracks and really began to play this album more and more, it became one of my favorite Foo Fighters album, one of my favorite albums of all time. I just love the mellowness. I love the it's mellow, it's laid back, yet at the same time it's still kind of heavy in a way. And I think some of David Grohl's best lyric work and songwriting's on here. Love the riff and Living Skin. And it just, always reminds me, especially Learn to Fly. Learn to Fly is such a springtime song to me. So love this album. Always most crave it in the springtime, but I love this album all year round. But I love all these albums all year round too. It's just, they really jump out at springtime for me. Another one I got for my 18th birthday, Goo Goo Dolls, Boy Named Goo. Took a trip to the mall on my 18th birthday and picked this one up and instantly loved it. Became my favorite Goo Goo Dolls album pretty much right off the bat, and has pretty much held on to that top spot ever since. Long Way Down, Burning Up, Naked, Flat Top, Ain't That Unusual, So Long. All songs that I just always kind of picture on a nice spring day. So Goo Goo Dolls, Boy Named Goo is the 8th album on my list so far. Number 9, I have Skid Row, Subhuman Race. I got this one closer to the end of spring in 2005. It was in May, but for some reason, this one always just kind of harkens back to springtime, I guess. For whatever reason, I guess I just feel a little more springy than summery when I listen to this one. Especially tracks like Fire Sign, which is one of my favorites on here. Into Another, Breaking Down. Just an album that I always kind of find myself really gravitating towards in the springtime. Awesome, underrated album from Skid Row right here, Subhuman Race. And to cap this thing off, just a couple of years ago, even though I've been a Collective Soul fan for quite a while now, I just a couple years ago really gave Ed Rollins' side band, the Sweet Tea Project, a good listen and realized it's really, really good. Just about as good as Collective Soul. And this one right here, their 2017 release, Alder Lane Farm, in 2019 was when I first actually heard it and played this album through. And it was in the springtime, and it just fit the mood. Like, it just so fit the nice kind of semi-chilly spring weather that was going on at the time. It just stuck with me. And to this day, you know, Sweet Southern Shine, Good to Change, Blue, Nothing Fades. Nothing Fades is a song that I really, really love. The year that my son was born, he was born in June. And before we had him, like that spring leading up to that, I just remember listening to Nothing Fades all the time. And it's just kind of, it's a song that I really gravitated towards, kind of thinking about him and thinking about him coming. So every time I hear that, I think about my son. So I've got an attachment to that song, pretty sentimental attachment to it. Also reminds me a lot of the springtime. Alder Lane Farm, another album that I really dig in the springtime. So let me know in the comments below some of your springtime albums. If you like this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And I'll catch you next time.